Mr. President, before I begin, I want to mention Pope Francis, who died last Monday. Since he became Pope in 2013, Pope Francis captured the world's attention with his simplicity. He had great compassion for the least among us, and he sought them out wherever he went. In his final homily on Easter Sunday, he reminded us not to remain stationary, but to go out seeking Jesus everywhere and in everyone. And that's how he lived, going out into the world, seeking Jesus and bringing the gospel to those that he met. I trust that he is now at home with his Father in heaven. And my thoughts and prayers are with South Dakota Catholics and all those who are mourning this humble servant of God.
Before we turn our attention to the important business of this chamber, I ask your indulgence to reflect briefly on a profound loss that has touched not only the Catholic faithful, but millions around the world, the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. Pope Francis, elected to the papacy in 2013, was a man whose life spoke louder than any proclamation. In a world often consumed by division, materialism, and the clamor for status, he modeled a different way, a way marked by humility, by service to the least among us, and by an unshakable commitment to the dignity of every human being. He lived the gospel not as a lofty ideal, but as a daily calling, venturing beyond the grand halls of the Vatican to the margins of society, to the forgotten, the poor, and the vulnerable, reminding the world that true greatness lies in service. In his final Easter homily, delivered just days before his passing, Pope Francis offered a message that now stands as a fitting epitaph, that we are not called to remain stationary in our comfort or complacency, but to move outward to seek Christ everywhere and everyone. His life was a testament to that mission. Wherever he traveled, whomever he met, he carried the light of compassion, the balm of hope, and the courage of his faith. Now, having completed his earthly pilgrimage, we trust that he has found his eternal home with the Father he so faithfully served. I extend my heartfelt prayers to all Catholics in my home state of South Dakota, across the nation, and throughout the world who mourn his passing. But more than mourning, today we celebrate a life that was lived in extraordinary fidelity to the highest callings of humanity.
Mr. President, we're kicking off the week today with a vote on a former colleague of ours, David Perdue, to be the ambassador to China. And we'll be working through several other ambassador nominations this week, including our ambassador to our close friend and ally, Great Britain. I don't need to tell anybody that it's important to have these individuals in place. And we're going to continue to confirm the President's ambassadors as expeditiously as possible. We're also going to continue to focus on filling out the rest of the President's administration. The President needs to have his team in place so that he can do the job he was elected to do. And I intend to make sure that happens as quickly as possible. We've already set a brisk pace on nominations, confirming more than 50 to date. And we're going to have a lot more nominees coming out of committee. And I want to make it very clear that we're going to process those nominees in a timely fashion. As I've said before, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but one way or another, we're going to get it done. The President needs to have his team in place, and we have a lot of other work to do. And speaking of some of that other work, before Easter, the House and the Senate took a major step forward on a permanent extension of tax relief for American families by passing a budget resolution that will allow us to proceed to a final bill. We've been working toward the text of that final bill for months, and drafting has only accelerated since passage of the budget resolution. And I'm looking forward to House and Senate taking up the final legislation. Mr. President, there's a lot on the line here. The tax relief that Republicans passed in 2017, which puts more money in Americans' pockets, is set to expire at the end of this year. And without congressional action, in 2026, tax rates will increase. The child tax credit will be cut in half, and the standard deduction will be nearly halved.
Mr. President, as we reflect on a life dedicated to service and to reaching outward with compassion, it is only fitting that we, too, renew our commitment to the work entrusted to us, the work of serving the American people with resolve, with integrity, and with a sense of urgency. Today marks the beginning of an important legislative week in the Senate. We have before us matters that will not only strengthen the functioning of our government, but also have lasting consequences for the future prosperity, security, and freedom of the American people. We will begin by considering key nominations ambassadors who will represent our nation's interests at critical posts abroad, including our close allies and strategic partners. It is vital that we ensure the President's diplomatic team is in place, fully prepared to advance American values and to protect our interests on the global stage. At the same time, we continue vital work here at home, work that speaks directly to the economic security of millions of families. In the coming days, we will move forward on legislation to extend and make permanent the tax relief that has been crucial to the financial well-being of hardworking Americans. Without congressional action, those gains are in jeopardy. Tax rates would rise, family budgets would tighten, and economic opportunity would dim for far too many. But we will not allow that to happen. Just as we honor the legacy of service and outreach modeled by great leaders like Pope Francis, we must honor our commitment to serve the American people, not just in words, but in decisive, meaningful action. In the weeks ahead, we will move forward not only to extend tax relief, but to invest in our national security, to defend our borders, to unleash America's abundant energy potential, and to begin putting our nation's fiscal house in order. Each of these efforts is critical, and each requires the full attention and cooperation of this body. Mr. President, let us approach this moment with a clear vision and steadfast hearts, knowing that the work we do here reverberates far beyond these walls. Let us not remain stationary, but inspired by the examples of humility, courage, and service, move forward in the task to which we have been called. With that, I now turn to the first matter before us, the nomination of our distinguished former colleague, David Perdue, to serve as the United States Ambassador to the People's Republic of China.
Americans making less than $400,000 a year would see a $2.6 trillion tax hike. And a typical family of four making $80,000 would be sending an additional $1,700 to Uncle Sam. Republicans, Mr. President, do not intend to let that happen. And our final bill will not only extend the 2017 tax relief for hardworking Americans, it will make it permanent. And in addition to permanent tax relief, our final legislation will invest in our border, energy, and national security. All three have suffered in recent years under the Biden administration. And Republicans are committed to securing our border, unleashing America's abundant energy resources, and ensuring that our military has the resources it needs to deter and defeat any threat. Finally, our legislation will also include substantial savings measures as we take a hard look at how we spend taxpayer dollars and work to get our country on a more sustainable fiscal path. Work on drafting this legislation continues. As we consider nominations, measures to repeal burdensome Biden administration regulations and other legislation on the floor, off the floor, we are getting ever closer to a final bill. And Mr. President, it's going to be great. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.